Just testing my voice here. It's always a thing. Woohoo! There we go. Um, you heard it here first. The wall is coming down. Indeed, you can view chain state as of now. There's probably going to be a lot of subtensor errors as people begin to resync their blocks. But don't worry about it. Everything will stabilize. We've already synced our archive nodes, so if you need to access those, you'll be able to. Tear down the wall. It is, let me just confirm that it is in fact torn down. It is being torn down. It takes a little while. It's a pretty big wall. Yeah, what's the current block number? Good question. We've been missing some blocks. All the chain state will be viewable. It is a blockchain, though you can verify that nothing has been tampered with in that period. And your own miners will be able to confirm and validate every single block. So on today's call, we're probably not going to re-demo this because, I mean, heck, you guys already saw the demo. A bunch of you have already run it. But I will talk about generally what's happening one more time and a couple changes to the way in which we are going to do arbitrations since yesterday. Small nits. Are people able to see the chain state? I just want to get a confirmation from the crowd here. This is obviously a little nerve-wracking for sure to see all of these coming in. But yeah, people are importing blocks. Hoorah! You can run the function now. Be the first in to swap. You can go for it. And today, I'm going to be doing a little slideshow as well, again, just so I can go over with everyone here what's happening on the chain and what's going to happen when we perform the swaps. So why don't I do that right now? Bear with me, guys. Okay. We'll let people come up on the stage at the end here and they can ask questions as well. The BT click command is out. We're going to get a confirmation from Swamination as soon as the chain state is accessible. Finny is probably overloaded. People are connecting in very quickly. This was expected. But don't worry, everything will reach equilibrium in a bit. So for the people that were not on the previous call, oh yeah, by the way, one important thing here is that we're still using the previous branch. It's not actually a release in and of itself. Read the documentation that's in the announcement about how you can upgrade to the latest bittensor version that we're using. It's an actual source. We're talking about source, so you don't have to install from pip if you have trauma. You're pulling it directly from GitHub. Blocks are syncing. Yeah, I know, I'm sure. Thanks, Fish. But let's jump over to talking about what's going on right now. So people can see my screen. I'm assuming there's no issues from before. And we're looking at the same thing. Right? Give me a thumbs up. All right, great. Thumbs up. Cool. So opening the chain. So we've opened the firewall. We've allowed access to the chain state. And people can set weights on subnets. They can also serve axons. That's not in this particular slides, but they can serve axons and they can even make commitments. So for subnets like subnet 9, you can actually push new models if you've trained them over this period of time. And of course, the main one is that we've enabled a scheduled cold key swap function, which some of you have already tested. Today until Friday, These will be the only functions available, and you'll be able to call the scheduled cold key swap if you so want, assuming that you feel like your funds are at risk. For instance, in my case, I do not think they are, and I will not be calling this function. From Tuesday to Friday, you will have the opportunity to call this function. It is 72 hours after you call this function that the actual swap occurs. But until the swap occurs, your cold key is totally locked, so no one can do anything else with your key in the meantime. And then on Friday, for most people, the swaps will be executed, assuming you do this right now, and we'll also be opening up the chain away from total safe mode, so everything goes back. Staking, unstaking, delegations, everything moves as smoothly as normal. So that's happening on Friday. Now, in the event that some key is hit an arbitration moment, either human error or the attacker decides to perform a number of the same operations as you guys, submitting the same cold key swap operation during the same window, 72 hours from when you called the initial, the key will enter into an arbitrated state. Many of you understand this. I'm just reiterating. It's the third phone call. I know. Bear with us. If this occurs, the key enters an arbitrated state because of the dual transactions with separate swap destinations. So the key is in arbitration. And when this happens, we immediately create a vote on the chain that will go to all non-arbitrated Senate members. So this is a unique change that we put in. So of course, there's a possibility that some of the subnet owners can't themselves vote, and you'll need to get out of the remaining Senate members. You'll have to get 50% of the remaining. Those votes will all be simultaneous. We'll be able to see them on chain. People can just go through them one by one and vote on each individual one. If your key is not in the arbitrated keys, you can continue to submit POWs. We've made it very difficult for the attacker to DOS the chain and submit multiple addresses. It would come down to effectively a losing POW race between you and the attacker. Obviously, you have more reasons to perform getting your key, just one key, into the active set. So that's where we are. I'm going to go back to, before continuing on, I want to go back to the screen here and see if people have questions about this particular state. There's no transaction fee for the swap. The command is schedule key the schedule wallet schedule cold key swap, which is in the documentation. Yep. The destination address is recorded on the chain, but assuming that your key is not doxed, they don't know that it's associated with you, so don't worry about any issues there. We had previously built out a mechanism where we were going to use a Discord bot and transfer the transactions across the firewall for people, and we would only have an individual that could see the transactions, and it was going to be this absolute disaster for anonymity. This is why we went with an on-chain solution, because we really felt like it would be unfair and unjust for us to step in the middle here at any point and try to even care about who owns what. So this is a totally anonymous operation, unless, of course, your key goes into arbitration. And then you got to figure out a way of kind of KYCing yourself amongst the Senate, which I'm assuming will not be the case for most people. So don't worry too much about that. If there are any questions about this point, I'm just gonna linger here for a while and answer questions from the chat. Make sure that everything is going well for people. Yeah, for subnet SN owners, you've been whitelisted, so you don't need a balance on your key. There's also been a whitelist for validators, assuming your validator was drained. It just looks to see that you have more than 500 tau delegated to your validator as the determination of whether or not you can call the call. So subnet owners should be totally fine, and everything will swap as you would imagine. So the actual cold key will swap on your subnet. So this will actually change who the delegates are on the GitHub, and so we'll have to go through a process of changing that for a number of members. As I mentioned yesterday, though, we hope this can be an opportunity for us to get people to move to chain identities, the BTCLI wallet set identity function, as the primary location for identity determinations rather than a GitHub, which we find was more of like a band-aid for a previous problem. Will the transfer from the wallet to wallet be enabled? No. So the transfer, the only operations are set waits, serve axons, commit up set commits, and schedule a cold key swap. So you can't do any transfers until Friday, and potentially longer if your key goes into arbitration. What will happen when a key goes into arbitration mode? What can it do and what can't it do? So it can't do anything. Once the key is in arbitration, the only thing that it can do is attempt to get out of arbitration. It's effectively locked until we can do something about that as a community and come together and reach some consensus about who owns what. If it's very unlikely that that will happen of subtensor connections. Oh yeah, by the way, the 1 tau requirement has been reduced to 0.1 tau. This we thought would be helpful for a lot of miners on a lot of subnets, so it's a lot smaller. If it's not enough, I'm sure you're not going to be attacked anyways. So yeah, it's 0.1 tau, not 1 tau. Great. Okay, there's lots of questions here. If people want to get up on stage and ask questions, that's fine too. But I actually had a second aspect to this presentation that I want to go into too, which is more, you might say, positive. Everything's going well. Oh yeah, root weights is also open. But of course, if the cold key associated with that root validator is locked via the swap, you can't set root weights because all operations that require the cold key are locked. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So you can set root weights if you want to get in quick. You can set root weights and then you can close down. That might be something that some people here might want to do, is to push this operation before they go into the 72-hour lockdown. Okay. People are still asking questions about this. So maybe I'll linger here. Does it include delegated tau and hockey stakes? Because yes, it does include delegated tau and hockey stakes. Yes. 72 hours is measured in block times. It's 7,200 blocks times 3. If people are wondering for the exact limit on chain. You won't be able to set hyperparameters when the key is in arbitration. That's true. So you can't lock registrations on a subnet, for instance. Is the key that was swapped out the only one that's allowed to serve axons? No, any key is able to serve axons, set weights, and do commitments. It doesn't matter if you participate in this or not. Yeah, so Mog is showing an error there. Can someone, git fetch? Yeah. If that's not in the documentation, Watchmaker, can you please add that? It's in the documentation. Okay, good. What about the fact that we will lose our Senate position when we switch our Valley cold key? We actually swap you out of the Senate, so you won't lose your position. Yeah. Right. Senates are also tied to hotkeys. And of course, when you swap your hotkey, you will swap that out of the Senate as well. Okay. So we are finalizing blocks. It looks like everything is going well. The Berlin Wall is down. The POW difficulty has been pulled down to 10 million, but it doubles every time you submit a new key. And this is what we were talking about as the Sybil resistance protection, where if the attacker attempts to submit thousands of keys, it becomes increasingly difficult for them to do that. But the first one is only 10 million. So for most people, it will just be 10 million. And yeah, as Ref said, for the After the cold key swap is finished, you'll have to switch to the hotkey, assuming you think that it is compromised, which it likely was, given the nature of the exploit that we discovered, exploit, hack, whichever you'd like to call. It likely means that your hotkey was compromised, and we very much want validators to swap those, and then further to use child keys as a manner of decentralizing the risk of the keys in the first place. You should have a specific key per subnet come our release of child keys. And yeah, the hotkey swap costs 1 tau. So for most people, it doesn't make sense. It's mostly for large validators. Miners are most likely fine to not swap hotkeys. Yes, I mean, I don't think that it's such an issue for a miner to lose their hotkey. Assuming you swap your cold key, it doesn't. The worst case scenario would be that they set a bunch of weird weights, but even those wouldn't count because you'd be underneath the validation limit. So I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that would matter. Yeah, or unless the hacker sets the axon to 120, 120, 120, 120, that would be annoying. Will the miner need to do anything if the hotkey is swapped over? Yeah, okay, this is actually something that we should talk about too. If you have hotkeys associated with a cold key and you swap with another cold key, you'll have to manually regen your hotkeys associated with that cold key. So BT wallet regen hotkey with the name of the new wallet, or you can just manually physically move the hotkey files over to the new directories, which would be in tilde/bittensor wallets. So you can actually just copy across the hotkeys, and they only exist logically connected on the chain anyways. So you can just do that manually, if that made sense. The actual impact of mining, I mean, one thing is that you won't be able to register a key until Friday. So that's positive for new miners. Sorry, that's positive for old miners. You have a bit of an advantage. However, it doesn't mean that you'll be at the top of the distribution. Once the chain opens again out of safe mode on Friday, everything is game, really. So you'll be able to register miners, and we'll go. Should I be able to write metadata to upload an newly trained model? Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the commit method, which is whitelisted. People are having Git errors here. Hopefully the OpenTensor team can help people with just getting this particular repo. I would have to rerun the PM2 command with the new wallet. That's right. Some people are getting some codec errors. I'm seeing in the background here. Don't worry about this. If this occurred for you, just check to see if your key went through and then run it again. If it did already get through, don't rerun it because it's fine. If the SN owner migrates cold key and SN ownership and SN will the S and SN bonds will be migrated to the new cold key. Yeah, everything is migrated. It's almost like just changing the actual string in the database in every single map. So everything just moves over as you would expect. To like it's just a new identity for the same identity. People that are reaching storage function not found, storage function, subtensor module, cold key, swap destinations not found. It's possible that you're not hitting the right chain endpoint. If you're hitting a local, it might be because your local node is not committed. So I would do -- subtensor.network Finney.
Hey, Const. Just wanted to add something about that cold key swap destinations. I think it may also be because our own blockchains are catching up. So that function doesn't quite exist technically for them until they've caught up to the validators. So it might take a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So okay, that makes sense. So some of the entry point nodes might just be slightly slow here to catch up to the chain state, and they may be pushing back at you, saying, "Hey, we're not ready for that function." So just bear with us. Perhaps give it an hour or so, and
One
that
thing
would
you
just
could,
be some.
sorry, I was going to say one thing you could try as well is just sync up a local subtensor light from scratch. That should also catch up rather quickly.
Yeah. Right. After you rotate hotkeys, you need to upload a new hotkey to your validators. Exactly. Were emissions distributed constantly to the miners during this chain safe mode? Blocks are generated each 12 seconds. I see my incentives are much lower to what I expected to be during all that time. There was a period where some of the miners were, some of the validators were out of activity. Um, and because of that, the incentives are not as high as they may have been over those 12 days relative to what you would expect, Timo. Uh, there will be a discrepancy between the perfect emission distribution and what you saw. Yeah. Let me, Lord Nadith, are you talking about what I just mentioned there regarding the emissions? Yeah, I suppose that's the question. Yeah, so there was a period at the beginning of the chain and in some point in the middle where we turned the activity up to 64,000. And because of this, there was a period when the minor emissions were not, they were actually stake relative rather than being emission based on the weights because most of the weights were inactive. So apologies for that discrepancy. We didn't catch that one in time. If weights were set on chain and could not be changed, what do validators have to do with it? It has to do with the fact that if validators don't set weights within a 5,000 block period, they become inactive. So most miners went inactive. Most miners went, sorry, most validators went inactive after about a day, and then they were inactive for a while until we fixed that. Please clarify in text write command for, yeah, so as we mentioned before, we need to wait for some nodes to catch up before they have the cold key swap destinations live. So in that case, just keep on trying the command until it works. Eventually it will work. It just, the entry point nodes are just lagging the state. Like imagine the state is sort of moving out in concentric circles to the other nodes in the network, and some of them don't yet have that function enabled. So the nodes are not in sync, exactly. So just give it some time. I mean, I would recommend, like, you have 72 hours to do this. You don't have to do it all on this call. Please just ask questions, and then you can do it in a bit. It doesn't change much for your lives if you delay it by a couple hours. Will the lock tau used for subnet registration go to a new address after the swap? Yes, of course, Slump. Yeah, totally. We don't just take that. Great. Would cold key balance be transferred to the new key? Yes. That was the first one. Has anyone made a successful commit metadata? Yeah, good question, actually. We have, so we know it's possible. It actually all goes to Voon's wallet. Yeah, that's right. So it's a 72-hour period from whenever we execute the swap, and that's right. Yeah, exactly. So Friday at this time, no swaps will be completed, but within the next couple days, all of them will be, assuming that all of them are called within the next couple days, starting today. Is it worth running the swap key now or just wait after Friday and transfer to a new wallet, if not register to a subnet new one? So if you think that your keys were at risk, we recommend that you call this before Friday, because after Friday, all functions will be available on bittensor. So assuming that your key was compromised, on Friday it could be drained, and they wouldn't need to wait any period of time or schedule a swap. So if you think that your key is compromised, definitely call it between now and Friday. Also ran it on testnet already. Should we run on the mainnet as well now? Yeah, you should run it on mainnet in the next couple days. If we need to restart miners, should we relaunch restart prior to submitting cold key swap, or does that not impact this functionality? I apologize if this is a dumb question. So the miner code itself does not run on a chain. And you can run a miner, serve your Axon, commit things to the chain as normal as of now. The cold key swap only limits the ability for you to withdraw out of the staking account into your cold key. So it shouldn't disrupt your mining. However, when the swap executes, you'll need to switch over the hotkeys to the new cold key. And the way you do that is actually just copy the hotkeys from their folder in bittensor into the wallet directory associated with the one that you swapped, or regen them using btcli wallet regen hotkey. For the sake of informing other holders that you're not that are on this call, yes, do not call this function unless you believe that you are compromised, your wallet was compromised, and that would be only for wallets that ran the btcli with 6.12.2 and unlocked their cold key. So if you set weights, if you served axons, if you committed values to the chain that didn't require anything that didn't require a cold key, even if you're using 6.12.2, you're not compromised. For instance, my case, I know that I'm not compromised, and I'm not going to be performing this operation because I don't think it's relevant for my keys. Can we put together a step-by-step list of commands to swap the cold key of the validator and then the hotkey? So the swapping of the hotkey will come later. We will put together a set of commands for people if they want to do that. Especially if you use the extension, you're totally safe. I reset the subtensor, but it seems to stuck and warping back to an issue. I think that's maybe something for some more technical help later. I don't know the answer to that. I have 20 hotkeys registered. They were only using set commitment. Do I have also to update all hotkeys after swapping the cold key? So all of the hotkeys will swap with the cold key on the chain. However, logically on the device, like physically where your keys are stored, they'll be stored in btcli wallets / your old cold key / hotkeys. So you'll need to, when you're calling commands that reference both your cold key and hotkey, you want to actually move those hotkeys physically on your device over to the new wallet. So maybe somebody can put that as a command on the chat here for how people would actually perform that swap for people. So Michael Terry, you might be running this on a local instance. That's probably what you're seeing. Or perhaps people are just overloading the chain and we need to wait a second here. Thanks, Kat, for that document. Yeah. You will be able to see which keys have requested the swap, and that's data that's viewable on the chain. Currently, that's not a function on the BTCLI, but we can write a very easy script here in the chat for people that want to see that specific thing. Perhaps Voon could do that. To Loayeei. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say your name. If this executed and still failed, you'll be able to see it the next time you call this function because we'll be checking the chain state for you and we'll say, hey, if you call this function, it's going to put you in arbitration. So if you do not see that disclaimer, then it didn't go through. To see the associated keys in arbitration, we're going to post a little Python snippet here in the chat for people in 1 second. Great. This is a subtensor complaining of an overload, typical try again. I think it's because a lot of people are blasting the chain right now. This is just a state of the entry point nodes being overloaded. So bear with us as they catch up to the load and then eventually things die down. This was kind of expected. Louis, okay. Yeah, sure. Oh, bye, ship. When running your own subtensor locally, can we update by pulling main upshot call keys right? There will be instructions on the subtensor branch that you need. Actually, Shib, can you answer that question regarding how they will get the local subtensor?
Sorry, can you get that one more time?
The question is, when running your own subtensor local, can we can update by pulling main arbitrage cold keys, right?
Yeah, that's updating bittensor, right? If you're running subtensor local, you can run it on Docker or on your own, really. But running a light node, you shouldn't need to update anything.
Okay.
If you have doubts on how it's working, or if you don't think it's working properly, you can just clear it out and start over. Because it's a light node, it shouldn't take long to catch up to the validators.
Yeah. Ban44 says it's this is an error that gets thrown when our entry point nodes get effectively DOSed by too many connections. So just bear with us. Like they're getting a lot of traffic right now. Can we run the swap function on the same key in the mainnet as we did on testnet? So holder, I would really not call the swap function on the same key in the mainnet, because if you call the swap function on the mainnet, it puts your key in arbitration. Do not do that. But if you meant that the key is the same as the one you used on testnet, that doesn't matter. Those keys are distinct on the two networks. They don't know about each other. Is there a setting that we can use to allow for more blocks in the queue for subtensor? No, that's a different question. Mog says Tau stats is indexing and catching up. Hell yeah. We are monitoring the load of the chain and endpoints to watch for issues. There's certainly a lot of load. This will take some time. Absolutely. Rapido says here, this is for people that want to run the latest Docker Compose on the mainnet. Yep, that looks right to me. If they're looking to use a local node. We realized that by doing some analysis, day end on Sunday, and it took us a little while to fix it, and that's why there's a large discrepancy. Apologies, guys. I think you said if you use the same key swap in testnet and mainnet, it goes into arbitration. Is that right? No, it's not right. So the 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 key, if you do a swap with the key on testnet, it doesn't affect the state of mainnet at all. It's only on mainnet if you use the key twice. Holder says it called in. So yeah, if you got this error because the entry points didn't work, subtensor node cold key swap destination is not found. If you got this error, the function very likely, well, it did not go through because the function was not called. Now, if you re-execute that function and the disclaimer says this calling this function will take your key into arbitration, then you know that it has been executed. Yeah, I don't believe you can execute twice with the same destination key anyways, right? So if you can call it as many times as you want with the same destination key and it will just be rejected continuously. So that's one way to protect yourself here. In order to allow validated emissions to continue, we have forcefully upgraded the activity cutoff. Exactly. So this is now set on all subnets, and it will be up to the subnet owners themselves to decrease that value back to previous values. Also, when the subnet comes up, when the chain finally comes back online on Friday in its full capacity, subnet owners will be able to turn off registrations if they feel like this is something they want for their for the subnets. As Garrett posted here, I'm going to throw it into the chat one more time for people. Call this function to see if your key is in arbitration. So if this function calls and returns that it is, then your call has gone through. We really are being hit by a lot of connections, and that's what people are seeing right now with the connections going down. We're just simply, yeah, you'll need to pull the feed branch there.
It's the bittensor community hug of death.
Yeah. Has this ever happened again before, Alan?
Not at this scale. No, this is definitely the first time.
Oh, look at that. It looks like at least one person has done the scheduled cold key swap. 3 at least. The wallet scheduled cold key swap. It's the same as the one that we're all talking about here. Kat says, but are those keys in arbitration? No, they're not in arbitration unless there's 2 keys associated with Voon. Could you please, yeah, Voon, could you also post a minor script here for people that just want to run it in Python, if they still want to? But the function in btcli is check cold key swap. So btcli wallet check cold key swap. That will tell you if your key is being arbitrated. If there's 2 keys associated with it, yeah. CLI. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Uh, Clee, is the address on the screenshot destination? Is the address on the screenshot destination key? I don't know what that question means. Someone maybe can translate for me. Teddy has Tegrity has posted a little script there that you can use in Python if you want to check directly, but also like I said before, we actually have the arbitration check in the CLI. Thanks, Rafi. Bedically. Um, does anyone actually know? I'm really curious. What's the number of swaps that have been registered at this point? Fish, thank you so much. Uh, uh, yeah. When will we have detail? Approximate date? More on that coming. Um, Degree, I think that you're connecting to the wrong chain there. If you had 400 million immediately, that doesn't seem right. The difficulty on the new branch should only be 10 million to begin. Volodymyr says that he halted emissions, and unfortunately, the answer is no. I'm sorry. Yes, Cons, are they probably on the wrong branch? Yeah, they're probably on the wrong branch. Exactly. I'm sorry. If you're using the branch from yesterday, it will be hard set to 400 million. Pull for the latest. Exactly. Make sure you pull. Too many requests. Yeah. Looks like a lot of peering happening, likely because there's a ton of subtensor nodes out there that are just DOSing our entry points.
I mean, it's funny because my brand spanking new subtensor node is even having trouble finding pairs. Like it's pandemonium out there.
It's okay. It will all draw down in a bit.
It'll all calm down.
Is it the trauma that the latest BTCLI is not on PyPy? Yeah, although it wouldn't make a difference. Okay, so we're up to 4 cold key swaps now. That's good. Ticking up from 1. So we have some swaps. Fuck yeah. Yes, Uruk, likely you're a sinking state. Thanks for freaking us out. Let's ask the hacker if he can help us out. Yeah, if he's on the call, would they come up on stage? Um, just raise your hand. Yeah. Nice one, Boone. I almost clicked that. Can I break out of the process and rerun with the latest pull, or I have to wait for it to complete now to prevent going into arbitration? So I don't know exactly the state that you're in, Tigrity, but I assume that the function just failed and didn't get called. So you haven't set the key to the chain. Now, if you're really worried, just make sure you don't set it to a new key. So if you run it, don't run it with a new key, because if you run it with a new key, then it will put you in arbitration. Assuming the previous function call hit the chain, which it sounds like it didn't. Tigrity, I think you're still on the wrong version here. You got to clear your cache. Maybe delete the whole bittensor repo and repull. And if you're still money on POW, you can break out. Holder, the connection to remote host was lost is just because we're seeing a lot of activity on the. It's not an error on the mainnet. It's simply coming from the fact that there's a lot of load on entry point nodes. It sounds like most people are not yet syncing. So that's just the state of the world. Yeah. They just haven't fully done a sync on their local nodes. So give it some time. For instance, Sirook is only at 14%. HOI, the WebSocket error is coming from, again, this is load on the nodes. It is making me think we need to have more entry point nodes. Shit. Double,
Yeah, I'm
triple.
actually talking to Paul right now about that. It might make sense to add more 2-point nodes, or maybe just we had one bootstrap node. We should probably expand that to a few more.
Okay, well, questions have somewhat died down. I think people are now just working on their deployments. Ala, what's the latest block?
Give me 1 second. I'll double check right now. It is 3352175. Put it down.
Okay, so people are just really waiting at this point. There might be just a lot of function calls coming on right now and extrinsics that are not getting passed through the chain. So perhaps people should give it a little bit of time here while things resync. The resync is probably slow for people just because of the load. Okay, people are syncing. Mock says we should all go to bed. It will all come through. These things just take time. There's sort of chaotic, hyperdimensional states to blockchains where this kind of thing can happen, where there's just a lot of state. But they are actually going through to the chain for people's information. There you go. Saruk's at 39%. We'll just use Saruk as the entry point node once he's listening to the chain. Hope you're okay with that. You are the entry point. See, we could have just opened up the network earlier and then allowed the scheduled cold key swap, but we wanted this kind of furious, chaotic situation in the chat to occur. It's way more fun, is it not? It's like old times. We've been through this so many times in bittensor. It's there's a sort of nirvana that we all get. This is likely to take some time. Do people have to swap on mainnet as well if they have swapped successfully on testnet? Yes. Hard yes. Michael Terror, yeah, an error on mainnet. The error that people are seeing is just that the chain state is being overloaded. So bear with us. You don't need to race to the entrances here to call this function. Like you don't actually have to call this function on this call. You can call it tomorrow. You have until Friday to get the function call out there. So if you're worried, if you're stressed, if you're getting an error, just sit back and relax. Order your dinner, breakfast, whichever time zone you're on, and sit back and relax while things steady out here. Yeah, we're very sorry to the miner community here for the not getting the emissions as much as people expected. That being said, people got more validator income, so for some it's positive. And if you're a miner that's been putting your dividends and staking it, it's been highly positive. Perhaps even the highest APY you'll ever receive. Ban44, the answer is that there was a couple days in the middle of this period where almost every validator on bittensor had gone out of activity, which means that they hadn't set weights in 5,000 blocks, and the validator weights has expired, and that means the chain just falls back to stake-based emissions. the the consequence of that is that if you were delegating, you made more tau. If you were mining, you made less. It looks like it's about a 1/4 of what people were expecting. So we're really sorry about that error on our behalf. Um, John, I mean, on Sunday, I apologize for not communicating that to you, but of course, it was fixed on Sunday, so you would have wanted to keep your miners on going forward from that point. Well, I suppose, John Dorbin, that would have been true from the beginning. So after 5,000 blocks, when the emissions dropped. Yeah. Note, I mean, the silver lining here is that if you were delegating tau, you made a higher APY over the week. So to Gritty, the fact that you're at 20 million here, there has been one swap request already made on this key. So I would highly recommend that you do not finish that function. Cancel that. There you go. Cool. There you go. Tigrity. This is exactly what happens when you call the function twice with the same. But this is great to see that you're actually getting through the state. So people are able to talk to the entry point nodes now. It seems like it didn't error out, Tigrity. Hey, Ref, welcome to the chain, the stage.
Hi, thanks for having me. So a question. If someone executes a cold key swap from wallet A to wallet B, and it goes successfully, and then they try to do the exact same thing again from wallet A to wallet B, what's going to happen?
Yeah. The second transaction just simply gets blacklisted. A second transaction just doesn't execute. So if you do A to B twice, the second one doesn't count. It doesn't put you in arbitration. This is
Okay,
what actually.
so if Tegrity now would be doing the same thing, and he actually was the first guy who executed the transaction, then the second transaction will not do anything.
If the attacker executes the first one, but then you execute the second one with the same destination.
No, so
I
okay.
mean,
This Tegrity guy, he tried to execute it. It didn't go
Yeah.
through. Now he's trying to execute it, and it's showing, hey, somebody ran it already, but we don't know whether it was his first attempt, which he thinks was unsuccessful, or whether it was the attacker that executed the first one. So if
let's go look.
Tegrity
Yeah.
migrates it again from A to B, from the same wallets, worst case, he's gonna lose 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. So Tigrity called this twice. It looked like the first one went through. Then he called it again. He should have stopped when it said there has been one swap request made for this cold key already, but he didn't. He went and called it anyways. They both had the same destination address, so it said, "Hey, error, duplicate cold key." So he didn't end up the second call just failed and didn't put his key into arbitration.
Okay.
Now, if you and the attacker both used the same destination address, then I'm assuming you're the same people. I mean, or unless it just
Agreed.
right. Yeah. So Rapido says the question is more like, will it go into arbitration if he had continued? He did actually continue. You can see that he continued because he posted the logs into the chat right here. which says that the transaction actually went through the chain and it was. Yeah. As Voon says, if you use the same destination cold key again, it will error, so you won't go into arbitration. I no risk. Exactly. Namore said, thank you to the miners that did run their services in this absence, even though they didn't need to. There was no weight setting, so they just ran it effectively, altruistically. So thank you to them. Thank you to Gritty for leading the swap battle. If I run it on mainnet, do I also need to run it on testnet? If you're worried, sorry. I mean, but if you're worried about your key being potentially compromised on mainnet, maybe you're worried about it being compromised on testnet too. And so it's actually not that stupid of a question. Testnet Tau is very valuable. Testnet billionaires. It's the real chain. We just haven't announced that yet. That's next week. We'll just be like, oh, testnet's the real net. That's coming. Const, are you tracking how many people are submitting the swap right now? Any crazy activity like the attacker running a bot? No, I don't think we're seeing that at all. I'm going to ask internally if we're seeing that. So people can monitor the number of swaps themselves. Voon, can you post a little? Can you repost your script for doing that? If the cold key swap was called by the hacker, could we somehow see the wallet address that he used as a destination? Yes, indeed you can. Yeah, that's on chain. Yeah. So this function here, if you want to call this will tell you how many current swaps there are. But of course, there is some lag on the chain. Yeah, give it to Mog. Mog, do the work. If the hacker steals my testnet Tau, I'm gonna lose my mind. Such a shallow hacker. I know, right? That would be so low.
I think Kat will be the most upset because she's gonna have to get people's Tau back all on her own.
Okay. If anybody wants to get on stage and ask questions, that's cool too. We can open this up. I don't think we have any arbitrations yet. We'd be able to check that as well. And we were just talking about swaps with this script. This is the number of swaps. Entry points are catching up. Things are moving a little slowly here, but yeah, they are catching up. Watchmaker, could you click? Sorry, could you post the step-by-step guide here into the document for people? Sorry, into the chat for diamonds. As for arbitration methods, could be potentially useful to allow miners validators with already published Axon info to sign a file that's publicly accessible on that IP port to prove ownership of the hardware used pre-drain. Yeah, I mean these kind of methods, we had built some methods in the background here when the first couple days that we were hoping to do arbitration. We were going to look at if you could sign a message from your previous key. We were going to look at the number of days you've been in the bittensor Discord relative to somebody else, and then go through an arbitration period based on how many comments you've made. And we thought of doing all of this fancy shit, but then we realized that this is just not very blockchainy, and it'd be much better if together as a community we came together and develop those methods. It's a proof of humanity kind of thing, and it's not easy to validate on a chain. Validators should use the hotkey swap after Friday. Yes, indeed, if they think they are compromised, and please do, because we believe that maybe over the passage of 8 to 10 months, a number of hotkeys have been compromised, and we really want to get people in the habit of often rotating their hotkeys. John's method is blockchainy. Yeah, that's very blockchainy. That's great. I recommend that. I recommend that, or if people need to sign some sort of message to show that they had a key that is related to that key. As Moon said, IPs can be spoofed. Yeah, good point. Arbitration by Thundertone. Arbitration by Battle Royale. Arbitration by fighting a tiger in a closed cage. Arbitration by chess. I'm down with that. Best meme contest. I like that. Whoever gets the most 49 does hashcat tasks gets the arbitration win. Ref will win. Ref will win that in every round. Whoever does trial by combat. So do we have a 24-hour of closed registrations after Friday to perform restarts? Not a question for me. It's a question for subnet owners specifically. They'll have the ability to set that term. Great. Well, the chat has degraded into hardly any technical questions. That's somewhat positive.
Yay, progress. We're moving.
God's telling them to make a ticket for arbitration. Okay, so funnily enough, we did actually build a Discord ticketing system prior to doing this on chain, which we're not proud of, but that was the previous idea. All the subnets I mine on now give 0 emission. Is that expected? All that are setting weights. There might be some subnets with 0 emissions if their registrations were off. I'm not going to answer that question, Rowan. Very slow now, but catch up soon. My hands are cold. We are open dancer. We have in our Discord server super easy to set up. This error invalid seal. Just try it again, Michael Ter. I think it is potentially because you actually solved it too quickly. Could we maybe have a short YouTube video tutorial for this? That would be great. Hey, Obi-Wan, Kenobi, uh, if you had just staked your Tau and you hadn't moved your stake in a while or you used the extension, you're really not at risk. Yeah, Mog, I think that's a good idea. Everyone can safely stand down at this point. Swaps are going through, the chain nodes are resyncing. Just give it some time. When we circle back on this, you have until Friday if you want to do the swap. Things will move more smoothly in a couple hours, and certainly by tomorrow, the entry point nodes will all be totally fine. So go to bed, Bog. Good night.
I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it for me too. I'm gonna call it here. But if you have any further questions, they are available in there.
Spoon says, please, for the love of God, use a cold wallet for your main key. Yeah, and I would very strongly recommend that you use a clean machine to generate your new key if you feel like you were compromised on a previous machine.